Alrighty, welcome to episode 263 of Tokwa's Ask Us Anything. As usual, it's been a pretty busy news week. June was Australia's biggest ever month for electric vehicles, and Tesla was right at the front of it. Tesla sold a record 8,760 vehicles here, with the Model Y alone accounting for 8,072, making it the best-selling vehicle of any kind in the country for a second month running. Electric vehicles took about 23.5% of the whole new car market, up from 20% in May and just over 8% in January. Tesla posted Q2 production and delivery results with approximately 452,000 cars produced and 480,000 delivered. It also reported the deployment of 13.5 gigawatt hours of energy storage products. Tesla has announced its Q2 earnings call will be held on Thursday morning, the 23rd of July at 5:30 Perth time. Tesla has now rolled out FSD version 14 to all qualifying Hardware 4 cars in Australia, with the notable exception being Model Y L. Because Australia is the first market in the world to run version 14 on that body, Tesla says it needs more time to validate it, and it's holding the update back until it's confident. And that was this week's news. Indeed it was, and once again, welcome to the program. Alrighty, we've obviously got a big session tonight. If there is anyone who is new and is comfortable in doing so, please unmute and say hello. Or perhaps a little bit later on. Okay, so there's no point burying the lead. Obviously, the big news was that FSD supervised down under version 14.3.3 over the last couple of weeks has progressively rolled out, initially to early access program, and now pretty much wide to everyone except for those who have a Model Y L. Now, if you do have a Model Y L, we all would have gotten the same email from Tesla, and as the news said, basically it's a new platform. It's the first time, we are the first jurisdiction to have FSD version 14 in a Model Y L, and Tesla is just being super cautious with that platform. So, maybe we might go to the floor and ask anyone, or if anyone's got any opening questions or comments, undoubtedly about version 14.
Loving version 14.
Very good, Norm. It's
For,
certainly, yep, go on.
for me, it drives into driveways, and it used to try and go on the wrong side of the road at one particular drive that I do, but seems to have stopped that. And of course, it accelerates a bit better now. I would just wish it had one of those settings that was the speed limit, though it's 61 or 62 or 1 or 2 kilometers over.
Yeah, so obviously, look, this is the first dot release that Australia's had. So even though it's 14.3.3, this is the very first one we've had, and it is the absolute worst it's ever going to get. And make no mistake, Tesla is actively training a new model, and it's getting an increasing amount of data from the whole fleet for all the foibles, and many of them Tesla already know about. Some classics are, like Norm, you said, the previous version 13 had a maximum speed setting, which was about the only thing in version 13 that was hard coded in C++, and that was the maximum speed. And the car would basically never go above that speed. And in fact, if it found itself above that speed, it would very quickly decelerate to be no faster than that maximum speed. Now, unfortunately, well, now what happens is you've got, I think it's 4 or 5 modes. There's sloth, chill, standard, and hurry. Sorry, that's only 4 modes. Now, if you use hurry or standard, hurry will, if it's 100k an hour limit, will generally go at 105, 103, 4, 5. Standard will go at about 102. I think chill roughly goes at the speed limit, and sloth goes up to 10 kilometers per hour less than the speed limit. But it actually depends on what that speed limit is and in what area you're driving. So that's one of the less ideal things about FSD version 14. And there are a few other things it does. It will overtake, for example, vehicles on a single lane road or single lane going each way. And you obviously have to often stop it from doing that. It still does what version 13 does, which is happily cross over solid white lines while traveling at a reasonable speed. In other words, say at 60 k's an hour, it has no qualms in crossing a solid white line to change lanes. I guess something I could describe that's really good, and something I never thought I'd be able to say, is that it has basically solved things in the bush, such as kangaroos. And if you just indulge me for a moment, I guess I could probably show you with actual videos. Let me just get set up. So if we have a look at this, this video was taken up in the Pilbara, and you'll see in the very distance kangaroos there, and notice the speed. This thing is slowing down. Let me just change this setup. It actually started quite early in Yanchep, or near Yanchep, and you'll see just above this crest, see that that was actually a fox, and the car very quickly reacted. But this was early on in my lap, and I wasn't really sure, you know, how good the system was. This next video shows another kangaroo, and notice how it sees it going across and then starts slowing down, because there's actually two, and that it was representing a bit of a threat. But they were kind of a little bit further out, so I wasn't quite sure how good the system was. Moving along, I think this is the same one with the two. Oh, these are two stationary roos. So the car barreling along at 100 k's an hour starts slowing down. There's the roos there. There's actually two of them, and they're bouncing around doing what they do. Notice how large they are. They're pretty big boomers. This was one of the better ones. This was near on the way to Fitzroy Crossing, and you see it's pretty dark. It's pretty hard to see. And if you look over here, you'll see this, which is really, really hard to see. And what I actually did was, to my eyes, I could not see that far because it was actually quite dark. And I wanted to manually put the high beams on, but I actually pressed the incorrect button. The high beam is the top button on the left, whereas the wipers is the bottom button on the left. So what happened was, just when I wanted to see better, and I didn't actually see these roos initially, I put the wipers on, which is kind of the worst thing you could have. But this car slowed down perfectly. Now, someone on X actually criticized the system and said, "Oh, you know, if there were three roos, the car would have hit the third one." The point was, it actually perfectly measured the trajectory of those two roos and slowed down sufficiently, well, enough to miss them, but not overly brake. Here's another one with a kangaroo on the side of the road. Oh no, these are cows, sorry. So again, pretty hard to see. This was dawn, and you can see these black masses. The car is starting to slow down here because it's not quite sure which direction they're going, and it sort of cruises between the cows, keeping a safe speed. This one here, in the States, this has been seen in some pileups. Now, just to set this up, there's a car that had just overtaken me. I was aware there were some roadworks up ahead, but if you look at this behavior, doing 100 k's an hour. The car hits a dirt patch. Suddenly, there's just no visibility. Now, this is similar to what a car would do if it starts spinning out of control, because you get tire smoke and whatever. So the car quite appropriately slowed down a lot, just in case, out of this smoke or this haze, there might have appeared a car on its side or something like that. Um, and I'll get to the last kangaroo one. This is on the way to Camberwell. Basically, there's a kangaroo on the road, perfectly motionless, but the car had already slowed down and was reacting to the kangaroo properly. Now, up until sort of then, I was fairly happy with what it was doing, but you're never quite sure just how good the system is. This next video clinches it, although it was a false braking event. It had misinterpreted truck skid marks on the road, but what changed my whole opinion of how this system works is just how hard it braked. And I'll show you what that looks like. You can sort of look at it as either the rate at which the speed reduces or the distance it takes to stop. So when it basically started, you can see the skid marks here. We're doing 100 k's an hour. This is a pretty short distance, and the car basically went from 100 k's an hour to stopped. Now, that was such a violent braking action that I could smell tire smoke and brake pads. And I was talking to a Tesla engineer a few days later, and he said that they had gone to a lot of effort to perfect the way that that all Teslas can stop in the absolute physics shortest amount of time or amount of distance. And what happened after that event, even though, like I said, it was a false positive, but what that then made me conclude, without any doubt, was that the system was better than a human for anything to do with moving animals. And it was not shy to brake as hard as required. So what I then did for the rest of the lap was basically fold my arms and cross my legs to guarantee that I wouldn't interfere with the system as it was looking out for animals and in daytime or nighttime. And once my mind had flipped that switch and knew with 100% confidence that that was what the system was going to do, the rest of the lap became pretty relaxing. And I just really didn't care about kangaroos or anything like that. And I must admit, after my FSD version 13 lap, I was convinced that Tesla would never be able to solve animals. And yet here we are one version later, and they have. So anyway, enough of me gibbering on. Has anyone else got any questions or comments?
Do you think that they will bring back the actual winding the speed up and down? Because
No,
that's yeah.
no. So it's not what's been done internationally, and it looks like now we are on this. Oh, yeah. So I will answer that, and then I'll get to something very important. So no, but it's certainly a known issue in Australia and in Europe, for that matter. Unlike North America, in North America, speed limits are a serving suggestion, and everyone famously speeds. And as long as you're not the fastest one and you're just in the school of other fish, it's okay. In Australia and almost most other places in the world, it's not okay. So this is something Tesla definitely has to sort out, that the speed limit is the speed limit, and that's just got to adhere to it. Something
It's
I
not. It's not just that. I'm on about quite often over here. The car thinks it's in a 50 limit when it's actually in a 70 limit or a 90 limit or whatever, and that's where
yeah.
I used to use the actual speed adjustment to wind it up and down. And quite often
Yes.
it wouldn't detect 110, or in
Yep.
the Northern Territory wouldn't detect 130.
Yep.
And I want us to wind down. And quite often I want to wind down the speed as well if I'm behind a truck to give me some more distance.
Yes. And that's another criticism of the current system is it's following a little bit too close. It's great for peak hour traffic where you want to be, let's face it, closer than the road regulations recommend. But if you are staying 3 seconds behind the car in front of you in peak hour traffic, there are so many other cars cutting into you, it just becomes ridiculous. But at the moment, the car does follow a little bit too closely, and there is no setting for distance between for changing the gap between the car in front of you and you. So,
Yeah. It's also,
um,
if you're behind a truck, you want to be a long way behind a truck, because if that
yes,
flips the stone up, take your windscreen out. So that's another reason why I
yeah.
wind the speed down, just to give me that more range, and I can just adjust it to just keep a reasonable distance till I overtake or whatever.
So if you go to sloth driving mode, it generally, in most speed limit zones, goes as low as 10 k's an hour, less than the posted
Yeah.
speed limit. The problem with trucks is if you're in a 110 zone, well, the slowest a car does is basically 100, and that's sometimes faster than many trucks.
Mm.
So unfortunately, there's a bit of an issue there. The thing I should have mentioned much earlier in the program was there's another bit of news, but it's not quite relevant to us yet until it actually happens, and that's that Ashoka Swamy did promise a couple of quarters ago that Tesla would be deploying an FSD light version for Hardware 3 cars by the end of Q2, and he snuck in on the last day. I think it was the 30th of June, when FSD version 14 Lite was deployed to some cars in the US with Hardware 3. Now, that will eventually come to Australian Hardware 3 cars, but not any time soon-ish.
Mm.
So I just thought I'd acknowledge that for the long-suffering Hardware 3 owners that have either paid for FSD or have been renting FSD, which is not really FSD, until those cars get version 14 Lite, which will hopefully come in the next few months or something.
Mm.
Alrighty. Anyone else got questions or comments or experiences with version 14?
I guess I can talk about. I drove south on 13 on the weekend, and then north on 14. And the difference was chalk and cheese. On the way south, I was prodding it along to get it to even do 15 kilometers below the speed limit. Not do that. And on the way back, interestingly, on brand, it sat about 2 kilometers an hour under the 110 speed limit on hurry. So I'm assuming it thought it was 100 zone. But it was great. It seems a lot more confident. I only suffered from the plunging into the slip road once at Cataby.
Yes.
It seems, look, I can't. It's kind of feels like I shouldn't criticize it too much. It seems to be very motivated to get left. And that's kind of, in one sense, a great thing. But the problem is it does it in places it shouldn't. So that needs resolving.
Yep.
But it's not a massive deal. And actually, it wouldn't have been a showstopper if it had slid into the slip lane at Cataby and then come back out again. But it's not the right thing to do.
No.
But no, it was great. Right through to driving into my driveway at the end. And parking perfectly in the carport. So that was kind of nice. Where previously, of course, with 13, it would just kind of just stop working in the street out the front. So it's good. And yeah, the only other negative feedback is that I mentioned to you, Harold, as well, is sometimes when it catches up with cars in front, it'll do a random little lurch forward. inexplicably, I don't quite know why it does it, but it'll catch up to the car in front, and then it'll kind of go lurch for about half a second, and then it'll settle back down again to, following. I didn't get any attempts at overtaking, but it's possible that I get used to, with version 13, I used to just cancel full self-drive and do the overtakes myself. But yeah, so I haven't actually tried an overtake. But no, it was great. It was great driving north, and driving around suburban Geraldton since I've got back. It's good. It handles the roundabouts. It actually indicates properly on the exits for the first time ever. And it still doesn't know how to get into Geraldton Hospital, which is my workplace. It always tries to drive through the building site, but that's not its fault. So I guess the only other feedback is, yeah, we're all waiting for the slightly announced mapping data that's supposed to be coming out, but I'm not certain anyone's got it yet.
I know it's definitely imminent, so I know it's been done.
Yeah.
So it's going to come out, and it's going to be 2026.8, which is a bit strange because that's quite a while ago now. That's sort of like implying a February mapping data point, but it's definitely coming out soon, very soon. In fact, I dare say it's probably imminent. If anything, they might be doing some last minute tweaks or something like that. So that would hopefully cure things like the Bunbury bypass and lots of other mapping updates or anomalies. Yeah, and the slip road thing. Yeah, look, I've seen it a gazillion times. It just depends on the road, and I think what it was is it's as a result of Tesla, because it's all neural training, so they're all using training examples of cars dutifully going into the left lane to be a good car citizen, basically to be correct behavior. And I guess the car is just over enthusiastically complying with that by picking incorrect things. And usually, the slip lanes usually have a giveaway, which is you don't have the normal spacing of long white lines with a gap. You have the little segments of white line and, lots of gaps, or, little alternating sort of thing. So it just needs to be trained out of that system to
and usually
not
a painted
do that.
arrow as well. So if
Yes,
it can notice the painted
yes.
arrow, it should ignore it, but it doesn't seem to do that. It even drew the arrow on the visualization, which is hilarious. So it saw the arrow and then it still went there.
And I'm going to go there anyway. That's right.
Yeah. But it's fine. It's and in those weird bits where there's a right turn space and they've made the road extra wide, it very politely indicates left that it's sliding over to the left, and then indicates right that it's sliding back into the main carriageway again, which didn't really bother me. It's kind of like, I don't think that's going to confuse anybody, but it is what it is.
That's right. Now you mentioned the thumps, or you get like a surge in the throttle. Bloody hell, it was dark coming out of Three Ways on my way to Camberwell, and I usually have like a big sip cup, or not a sip cup, just an ordinary plastic cup that I have a strong coffee in. And sometimes the surges can be so hard. It's almost like someone got this massive mallet and just hit the back of your car. It's just like it's this full throttle blip for a fraction of a second. And of course, hilariously, it just spilt coffee all over me. And it's like, yeah, gee, thanks, Tesla. So luckily it was a little bit cool that morning. So whenever I got out to charge my car, I just put my handy dandy Tokwa cardigan on, or hoodie, and just covered up the coffee stains. And then I changed it later on. But yeah, look, make no mistake, there are a few little foibles. But I think the main thing to appreciate is this is a quantum leap in the actual performance. When I went into Adelaide and it was raining, it was peak hour in the evening, I was unfamiliar with the layout, and this car just performed like a star. And traffic was a bit slow in the right-hand lane. In fact, there were three sort of lanes, and the right-hand lane was busy. The middle lane was a bit chockers. So it just chucked itself in the left-hand lane. I don't have the video of it, but it's so confident, and because it can see in all directions all at once, unlike version 13, which was very hesitant. This thing is very confident, and it behaves like a very confident driver. And when it sees a gap, it'll take it, and it doesn't hesitate. It doesn't wait. It's done all the maths, and it just does it. And that responsiveness is exactly what you want in this sort of system. You almost want it to be able to see things faster than a human, so it can react like that, and it looks like, this sort of superhuman thing. Um, and that's really the positiveness of this whole system, is not its inadequacies or foibles, which can be absolutely dot point eliminated by retraining, but the actual underlying structure of this system and the way they've done that specialized encoding and the way it does the perception is so superior. It's just chalk and cheese.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And as a counterpoint to that confidence, it's also really, really aware of pedestrians and will really do the right thing as well. There's a roundabout just before I get to work where there's almost always people crossing the road. And every time, if there's someone waiting to cross the road, it'll just pause and let people
Yep.
cross, and which is exactly what I want it to do. So yeah, it's great. But yeah, absolutely, I've done a couple of turns out onto Northwest Coastal Highway where you can't stuff about, you need to go, and it picks a gap beautifully and just goes. Yeah, I've been really impressed with that. So you're absolutely right. I know we could spend the entire night talking about the 2 or 3 really annoying little foibles, but it's fantastic compared to, well, anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And this is the worst it'll ever be.
Sorry.
Go, Mark.
I say, one thing I forgot to say was Shirley's just been in the hospital. She had an infection in her leg. So I've been going backwards and forwards to Joondalup Hospital from our house. And one morning I got in the car and I thought, right, I'm inside the garage. I've only got literally, I think I've got maybe 5 inches one side and maybe 3 to 4 inches the other side on the mirrors to get out. And there's never game to give it a go. So I thought, I'll give it a go. So I just give it a little tap on the accelerator just to get it to move. And it just backed out, and it wasn't quite lined up. It had to actually move the nose over to the right just to miss this post on this side. And it just went out perfectly. And did it. I've done it about 3 or 4 times now. It's just gone straight out. But that day, it drove straight the way out of there, drove me all the way really nicely, all the way to the hospital. When it goes in the 50 limit, so I just dropped it into chill mode. That just kept it under 50. Because otherwise it just drifts on 50, and I don't like going on 50 and where there's all kids and stuff about. Drove me all the way to the hospital, pulled round to the front of the hospital car park, pulled in, and then reversed into the parking spots absolutely brilliantly. It did do a couple. I would have probably gone all in one go and not been quite centered, but it actually decided, no, I have to just move a little bit just to get right centered in the line, and it was perfect. Yep. So from leaving, just getting in the car, pressing that button, I never touched it once. It was brilliant. It's a quantum leap. It really is.
Something I had a quick discussion with one of my mates before I left for the lap. And I mean, again, actually, apologies that 2 weeks ago we didn't have an Ask Us Anything, because I had no idea that this thing was going to land on my car, and it landed on a Friday and I left on the Monday. For 10 days, and then obviously that next Wednesday we had a pre-scheduled casual meetup. So this is the first show for 2 weeks, but it's what I sort of joked. My mate goes, "Oh well, after this lap, the next thing you have to do is in a robo taxi," and I sort of like chortled and went, "There's no way I'm going out in the bush in a robo-taxi with no steering wheel, because that's just not going to be possible." After the behavior of what I saw with kangaroos and all the other things, as long as I can get something like an Xbox controller just to do a little bit of left, right, if the car's parked or whatever, to find a charger, you would absolutely be able to do it on a robo-taxi almost today, which is really outlandish to say, but it is basically true. And in fact, actually to that end, some news from the last couple of weeks was that Tesla did release, and this portends very well for Tesla's robotaxi rollout, is they actually released a first responders document which showed all the different characteristics of a proper robotaxi, or the cyber cab, slash, well, actually it's a cybercab, which has no steering wheel. And there is actually a way for first responders and presumably others to manually drive the car, presumably using the touchscreen. So presumably you sort of like move your finger across the screen to actually steer this thing and have it drive to a safer position, if that's what it's needed to do. So, yeah, I thought it was ironic. I was convinced before this lap that there was no way a robotaxi could ever drive around Australia, cybercab, sorry, around Australia. And now I reckon, yeah, you could basically do it with just a minimum amount of final control to get to a charger and things like that. Because unfortunately, chargers in Australia aren't anywhere near as well documented as superchargers in the States. Alrighty, anyone else?
Is there any rumours on the summons yet?
No, so not even dumb summon or actually smart summon. There's just nothing yet, Terry. It's look, I dare say it's a low priority for Tesla, understandably, because they probably have to actually. Well, here's a better question: is there smart summon in the States yet
Yeah,
under version 14?
yeah. There's a lot of people
Yes.
putting up videos on YouTube.
Yep. Okay. So the thing to understand with version 14 down under, and they call it down under for a reason, because it is a wholly Australian designed, well, learned system. So we have Australian engineers obviously working on data that is crunched at Cortex 1 or 2, whichever one. So obviously the actual training compute is in the States, but the engineers that are curating the clips and massaging the training runs are based in Australia. So it's very much an Australian curated system. So understandably, they're focusing on perfecting normal driving than doing the, let's call it the less important task of some of the nicer things such as smart summon or even summon. I guess they're just prioritizing, engineers are prioritizing, I dare say, in order of hardware 4 cars with version 14 full, then hardware 3 cars with version 14 light, and then I guess all the other things, the other features and benefits will come about afterwards. And I guess we just need to be a little bit patient with how that progresses.
I have a question about lane centering. We've
Yes,
just
Graham.
we've just installed version 14 a few days ago, and what we find is on dual carriageways, especially like Stirling Highway, Guildford Road, if we're in the outside lane and there's cat's eyes in the centre, the car will actually drive over the cat's eyes as it goes along, which is, obviously too close to the right-hand side and is scary and very uncomfortable. From what I've seen on the internet, people say that the car either drives very centrally in the lane or to the right or maybe to the left. So I'm wondering why our car drives to the right, especially since we've all got the same hardware, we've all got the same software. Why is the lane centering different? We did talk to the service people today, and they said they understand, but there's nothing they can do locally because it is FSD and keep reporting the issue. I'm hoping it's going to get fixed, but I noticed under version 13, we didn't seem to get point releases. I'm hoping under 14, we do get point releases and they fix the lane centering issues, especially with us with drifting to the right, which is a bit scary when there's oncoming traffic.
Yes, Graham. In fact, I'm just hurriedly trying to get my phone to upload a couple of files to my folder. My car, it actually started happening on last Thursday. I mean, I'm one of the Well, fortunate people have had it for a couple of weeks, but it was only last Thursday when my car started getting stay in the right part of the lane disease. And hopefully, if this OneDrive, yeah, here we go. So these two videos will sort of make sense to you. Once it loads, come on, you can do it. Um, yeah, unfortunately, my car's got it really, really badly, and the kind of cure is to just disengage and sort of recenter. But then, as you no doubt you're aware, the car then basically militantly sort of starts veering back to the right-hand part of the lane. And if you've
Yes.
got a road that is unmarked, so that there are cars going in both directions but no center divider, it effectively sits itself roughly with the right tires on the center line, on the virtual center line of that road, which can be a bit annoying to cars coming the other way, because you've got sort of like a meter or 3/4 of a meter space between the left-hand curb and your left wheels. This is what my car does in most places. So it's really, really close to the curb. In fact, it actually does almost a curber just coming up, because there's a lump right there. So just back here, a tree root, that the tree has basically uplifted all this stuff, and it basically really thumped. It didn't hit the curb. It was probably maybe an inch or two from the curb. And then if we compare that to the opposite side of the car, so that's almost like no space, and that's on the right hand side. You can see how wide it is from the left. It's very much in the right hand part of the lane. And like I said, my car basically, oop, my car basically, sorry, double press. Come on. Sorry about this. This computer's just, okay. My car basically just insists on sitting in the right part of the lane. So hopefully that's something that's going to be resolved really soon. I don't know if it's folklore, but it seems Tesla can do some tweaks without actually doing a whole software update. I think some people call it hot fixes, or I'm not sure. And I've got no inside information about it whatsoever. But hopefully there are little things that can be tweaked that can make some of our cars behave a little bit nicer. But by all means, look, you're in control of the car. Just flick it off and put it in a better position if it's causing issues.
Yeah, the service team said make sure you're continuing to do bug reports. Press the microphone button and do bug report. FSDs too close to the right, because they said every one of those gets seen by a person.
Yep.
So they said it's important to do that, even though they couldn't do anything locally about that.
Yeah, and that's right, because the service team have got no control. They're not part of that. They're not part of the FSD team. It's nothing they've got visibility of whatsoever. But there's certainly great tips. The only thing I'm not aware of is, and it's a shame that Tesla doesn't really make it more clear, when you disengage FSD, let's call it FSD 14 to be clear, you now get 4 options. I think it's critical, navigate, parking, and other as reasons why you disengaged. But of course, it does help if you press bug report and say something, because all of those bug reports, they are kept as a log in your car at that timestamp. So then if it coincides with a disengagement, then someone who's looking at that disengagement can read that text and have more context to why you did what you did. And Look, I dare say by now Tesla's probably fairly well aware of it, but all the more data they can get, the better, you know, for them to build a new model. Alrighty. Anyone else got any questions or comments? Or even if it's not about FSD and then about anything else for that matter, it's totally cool too.
I also love the version 14. Thanks. Mine is a first world problem. It'll either drive to my neighbour's driveway and park, and if I change it to one house after mine, it drives to his one. So it'd be
I
like
get the same.
0.5 I could have. First world problem, but it does do an awesome job of parking just at my neighbour's.
I think I saw a YouTube video where they were talking about something along the lines of you'll be able to customize the last part of your route so it'll remember that last bit. So it'll remember how you parked in your driveway. For example, whether you park forwards or reverse, or certain other aspects. And that I think there's a similar thing applies at your workplace and would probably also apply at things like favorites, so that some of those well-worn routes or destinations that you do, it'll keep a memory of the correct way of doing it, because I guess the car has no idea that you prefer to reverse into your garage, and in fact that you go on the left or right hand side of a double garage or whatever. So I dare say this is all the finessing that Tesla will be doing in the future that'll make it really, really good. I guess, Peter, the other thing is if you put your address in one house too soon, then the car will stop too soon. And here's a pro tip. So something it took me, I don't know, 5,000 kilometers to work out was the user experience. The user interface is also slightly different on the new version 14 FSD. So a few nice things. You've got a multitude of trip meters now, so you can have all these trips to different places, and there's a nice graph customized for each one, telling you the efficiency and the stats and all that sort of stuff. And you can even pause trips, and you can have as many as you like, at least within limits. But there's a few other things too. You now get stats on the percentage of distance that you've actually been using FSD as opposed to manually driving, and a whole lot of things. So there's a whole lot of nice little features that have come, but there are more that are coming to make it just that little bit better. And I think precision parking or planning on what it does when it gets to some place will make it a lot better. But as far as getting a streak, if you let the car finish what it's doing, so if you tell it to go home and you tell it, I think there are about 3 modes. You can say pull over, go in the driveway, or park. And it depends on context. So if you're going to a supercharger, you can actually say effectively park at the charger, which at Townsville worked for me perfectly, but I didn't have video of it. And almost every other supercharger, it kind of fluffed it and didn't quite go in the right spot, unfortunately. So there's these little nuances, but if you let the car finish an FSD journey and go into park, then you can actually drive around manually as much as you like, and that doesn't count against a streak. A streak is basically you start a journey on FSD, it ends itself with the car parked, and then you resume another journey at some time later, and then that ends itself successfully as well. Those 2 journeys, that distance will add up to be your streak. But, streaks around Perth and that can be hard, because if you're not happy with what the car's doing, you might just disengage because, it did something you didn't like, and then your streak will go back to the start. So, like I said, that took me 5,000 Ks to work that out because unfortunately there aren't really detailed instructions. Which actually, to that end, if there's anyone that's got any questions or they're about to get FSD 14 or they've just got it, if there's any questions about it, feel free to ask away. Oh,
One thing
actually,
I've
James.
noticed.
Sorry, John. I just realised that James. Sorry, James. Actually, welcome James because James is actually, even though he is a fine sand groper, he's actually joining us from the future. And how is it in the future, James?
It's very late. I don't know. It's messing with my head. It's 10 o'clock here at night. My question with FSD is how good is the headlights, the automated headlights? Is it much? I've only got hardware 3 and autopilot. And there's a lot of angry truck drivers in the Queensland country roads flashing their headlights at me.
Yeah, one of my dash cam clips coming out of Adelaide on the way to Port Augusta had a classic where it showed a truckie flash his lights at me because my auto high beams just didn't quite suppress early enough. And it's a known thing. And the worst thing with the new Teslas, so let's call it from the Highland Model 3s to the Juniper Model Ys, that is those without high beam stalks, is the best thing you can do with auto high beam on a straight country road. And that's like, and I'm sure you're aware of this, James. When you've got a complex bendy road that's hilly and bendy, everything's okay because as you come up to the crest of a hill and a truck comes the other way, you both sort of see each other's high beams simultaneously or lights simultaneously, and the Tesla will suppress its high beams as well as a human does. But the biggest issue is when you've got a long straight stretch of road and you've got a truck in the distance, and our high beams in the Teslas are pretty good, and it just stays on too long. What it may do is a truck will have its high beams on in the distance.
I
The
thought I'd
Tesla will get
just
to
try again from my phone, and guess what? It doesn't work.
It does work, Richard, because I can hear you clearly.
Sorry, I'll just mute.
That's okay. So when the truck's on high beams, a long way away, the Tesla will see the truck's high beams, mute its own high beams, and paint a black box around that truck, which is perfect. The problem comes as you start closing from a long distance, the truck driver will eventually decide to suppress their high beams and go to low beams. Problem is that's such a long distance away that the car sort of stops seeing it as a threatening vehicle and resumes full high beam. And then sometimes it actually, to make it look even worse, it'll resume high beam, then it'll suppress it, so it'll paint a black box, then it will put back high beam, and then it suppresses it. And it's almost like you're doing a slow flash of this truckie, and the truckie's probably going, what's this idiot doing? It's just madness. And in frustration, the truckie will then flash their high beams. Our car will comply, paint a black box around the truck, but as soon as the flash is over, it'll resume high beam, and you just look like an absolute moron, like a pest. Now, what you do in desperation is you press your high beam button if it's a Model Y Juniper or a Highland Model 3 to turn off high beams, and that's fine. But then you're depriving yourself of seeing the sides where there are kangaroos and all that sort of stuff. And there's no way of silently bringing back high beams without pressing and holding the high beam button for about a third of a second, but no less. And in that time, it forces the high beams to be fully on. And again, you look like an absolute idiot. And therein lies the problem of removing stalks and things, because you just lose that functionality. But yeah, James, it's I know your pain. I'm just getting over it. Where truckies just hate Teslas at night on the highway.
Any word on
But
the ship that's come in? The new Model YLs?
oh no, sorry, I didn't even look. I did not even know. Sorry, no. Actually, has anyone else got a Model Y or even a 3 that's on the Glovis something
Century.
Glovis Century? I haven't looked. Well, I guess the real question is, James, have you got an invitation to
No.
book a? No. Okay, so which means the trucks haven't started collecting cars yet. Because what I found from my car when it arrived, I got the notification to make a booking the same day the day after the trucks started collecting the cars. So I dare say they haven't been collected yet. Which is good for you, James, because the last thing you want is for Tesla to
Yeah.
say, "Hey, can you book in something early next week?" But again, just as an FYI, if anyone who's a member of the club finds themselves in a situation where Tesla needs you or wants you to collect the car in a short time frame that you're just not available, in fact, you don't have to be a member of the club. You just need to know someone who is prepared to collect the car for you. You contact Tesla, they will send you a form to fill out, and that is just to give the contact details of the person who's picking up the car on your behalf, and then that person only needs to bring their driver's license as ID, and you can appoint a proxy, anyone, to collect your car on your behalf. And Tesla make that a pretty easy process to do. So you can always get a friend or a relative or whatever to collect the car on your behalf, should you be in that situation. But James, tell me, like I don't already know. Actually, yeah, tell me how your charging experience. Well, sorry, tell us where you are and how you got there and where you're going, and then tell us how your charging experience has been along the way.
So tonight we've arrived in Mackay, so we're on the east coast, straight from Perth last Friday night. We went through across the Nullarbor, which was awesome because Baladonia, no charging. The WA EV was out of work, so we charged at the old at Baladonia Roadhouse behind at the $3 a kilowatt. So it cost me $110 to charge my car, and it took 2.5
Sorry,
hours.
was that $110 to cross the whole Nullarbor?
No, $110 just for. No, it cost me more to charge there than it did to get there. I think it cost me $100 to get to Baladonia and $110 to charge at Baladonia.
So I must admit, it was kind of my fault that
Yes.
Baladonia cacked itself, and I'll explain it like this. I innocently put up, this post, which basically said, arrived at Baladonia charging, at the Tritium, fast DC charger. And that was a nice photo of it all energized. Of course, I should have known that that wasn't what was always going to happen, because after about an hour, actually this happened 2 hours later, but after an hour, the Tritium went offline, well, went as unavailable. So I hooked into the Type 2 three-phase outlet, and then an hour later, the entire site went black and stayed black for the next until a few days ago, when someone traveling from Karratha, a technician from Karratha, after he had fixed Norseman, which was also not working, then went to Baladonia to reset it manually.
And then the day was great because all the chargers in Queensland use the Telstra network. So
What happened
we
to the
got
Telstra network, James?
we got a place called Injune. If you imagine, if you think of Queensland as a dartboard, and bullseye in the middle of it would be Injune, and so we got there, and it wouldn't work. No Telstra, but luckily they had a faulty Type 2, and so because the Type 2 was faulty, it let us work. So that was good. We rang up Charge Fox, said, "Oh, is there any chance we can do anything? Is there an auto vend? Is there a reset?" And they said, "Oh no, you just have to drive to the next nearest charger, 250 kilometers away." But we did. We managed to get enough charge to drive to the next nearest charger, only to find out that most of northeast Queensland was blacked out. Anywhere east of the ranges, of range about probably the Perth metro area, there was no power. So there was no charges at all. And we pulled up to a caravan park, no power. Luckily, came on within the hour. But if we hadn't known, that was out from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock across an area about the size of like the Perth metro area.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Of course, Hindsight Harry says that you should have looked up Ergon Energy's website for planned outages. But I
We knew
mean,
something's wrong. 'Cause
whoever
we turned
expect
up on the highway there at town called Dingo. Yep, exactly as the name sounds. And there was cars queued out the petrol station. We thought, "Well, what's going on here?" And as we rocked up to the charger and it didn't work, obviously they couldn't process payments. They had a generator to power their system, but there was no Telstra, no payments. So there's lots of petrol cars waiting as well.
So after that, you finally filled up or topped up at Dingo. Then what happened after that, James?
So we managed to we got to Rockhampton, and we got to Rockhampton and thought, oh, maybe we'll get all the way to Mackay because there's this funny little red and white charges, and the Tesla car, you just press Mackay, said charge here for 3 minutes, charge here for 8 minutes, charge here for 10 minutes. So we've gone from an hour and a half in the middle of nowhere to 3 minutes. Didn't have enough time to go and get hot chips.
Oh, that's outrageous. I
And we
mean,
just
come on,
mapped it all
Tesla.
the way to from here where we are to Cairns tomorrow.
Yep.
And it's like the longest wait, the longest charge time is 8 minutes.
Yes, it's ridiculously good, the First World Supercharger network, because it's ever reliable and basically always works, is always maintained, regardless of any adversity. And it's the only thing you can rely on to actually work.
I'm excited. I'll get my
Um,
Barrier Reef badge tomorrow.
Very good. Now, just as an example of just how good the supercharger network is, I was at Hewenden, and right here, and I simply said I want to go to Kimber, and I wanted to go via Canberra, and I think that was enough. That was all it needed. Oh, and also Melbourne, and it just plotted the entire route. And like James said, it just tells you at each stop. I didn't scroll up, but at each stop it tells you how long you're going to be there for each location, and tells you how many. Like for example, Townsville's going to get there at 16%, 387 k's away, 4 hours and 12 minutes. I mean, I didn't leave at 11:30. This is just when I made the plan. Sorry, no, that was when it was going to arrive. Sorry, at Townsville. But it just plots the entire route out seamlessly. And that's just how good the supercharger network is in Teslas. Super reliable, and you don't have to plan anything. The other thing, James, is once you got to Rockhampton, did you find yourself concerned about what your battery state of charge was or anything
No.
like that? Like,
Nope.
So you just do what the car says. You just plug it into the supercharger.
Yep.
You wait until it says you're good to go to the next destination,
Yep.
and you just unplug and go off to
Yep.
the next place.
We've learned a few things on this trip because we've got the only rear-wheel drive, the short range Model Y. So we left Peterborough in South Australia to get to Broken Hill on minus 20% estimated arrival percentage. That's always a bit nerve-wracking, leaving on minus 20%. And another place we had to leave on minus 18% to get to somewhere. But it's pretty good at telling you how fast it goes. It says stay below 95, and it does it.
Well, something that's pretty stark, and it's a bit of an indictment as far as the Nullarbor is concerned. And, people wonder why sometimes we bang on about, Tesla needs to do the Nullarbor to have it reliable. A post I put up during the lap was, how's this for ironic? DC power available from one supercharger stall. So this is at a place called Conniver, and this is just a single stall because this is actually a trailer, priority for trailer stall. So it asks people to use this one last to keep it for trailers or caravans. Basically, this one 250 kilowatt stall has got more DC power available than the combined power output of Norseman, which at the time was 0 kilowatts, Baladonia 50 kilowatts, Kaiguna 24 kilowatts, Majura Pass 33 kilowatts, Mundrabilla 30 kilowatts, Border Village 0 kilowatts, and Nullarbor Roadhouse 40 kilowatts. Now, I forget which day I did that. That was on the 1st of July. Of course, after I went to Norseman, because this was before Baladonia, I actually then realised that Baladonia had capped itself. So, of course, the information was out of date. So now the DC power available from this one stall is roughly twice the combined power output of Norseman nothing, Baladonia nothing, Kaiguna 24, Majura Pass 33, Mundrabilla 30, Border Village nothing, and Nullarbor Roadhouse 40 kilowatts. One Tesla supercharger stall has roughly twice the combined output of all of the Nullarbor chargers. And if that isn't a damning indictment on both the WA state government and the federal government, who co-funded with the NRMA for their appalling network in places, it's just a stark indictment of the remote area DC charging landscape. And James, you're just as much a victim of it as we all are for any of us that dare travel to the outback in an EV. And, it really is all the more reason why we just hope and implore Tesla to save us from this diabolical steaming pile of excrement that is anything but superchargers.
But in saying that, it is the best car for long trips. Like, you arrive refreshed. I can only do 270 kilometers in between stops, but I think that's too long for me anyway. Even when I get the Model YL, I'll still be stopping every 200 kilometers because that's, you stop at a town, have a wander around. And it's funny, everywhere we stopped on the 50 and 75 watt chargers in the middle of nowhere, there are so many grey nomads. I think during the school holidays, they all leave the coast and they come inland to avoid the kids. So every time you go to these little towns, there's just caravans and caravans. We're spending less time in these towns than these guys are. So because you pull up, you can see the caravans there. We'll pull up, plug in a charge, go walk around the town, do what we've got to do, come back and be driving off in the same caravans that are sitting there having their coffee and all that, which have been moving off to get their petrol. So there's no, this is slow charges, but there's no loss for me. I'm still moving on and doing more Ks a day than they are.
Well, James, you're going to look forward to your Model Y L because I can definitely declare that to be the road tripping champion because at the end of my 13,000 Ks, I actually averaged 173 watt hours per kilometre, which was more than the 169 I averaged in the Juniper. And that's because I could go faster. So I could do the 450 kilometre leg between Three-Ways and Camberwell at basically 100 Ks an hour, which is the fastest I've ever traversed that 450 Ks ever. And if you want to contrast that to a painful traversal on my Model X back in 2018, I did the first 50 Ks at 60 Ks an hour, the next 50 Ks at 65 Ks an hour, and the next 350 Ks at 70 Ks an hour. And that was painful. In the YL, that same leg, 100 Ks an hour flat, non-stop, completely non-stop. And it took bang on 4.5 hours. So the YL and the YL in particular and Teslas in general are road tripping champions. And when you combine that with FSD, it's just so relaxing. I mean, even autopilot to be honest, but FSD in particular is just so relaxing. It's just not funny.
Yep, even this rear-wheel drive, autopilot only, is just compared to the kilometers I used to do in the four-wheel drive. It's so easy. You're not arriving tired. You're listening to a book, listening to something, having a nice chat.
Yeah,
All right, but
absolutely.
right now I have to go to bed because I've got to be up early tomorrow to get to Cairns.
Yeah, very good. Stay safe, James, and yeah, enjoy your trip. It's an awesome thing to do. Alrighty. Anyone else got any questions or comments?
I think speaking of things of the future, I've borrowed a certain poster's post for my background tonight, and in that post, I thought it was quite clever of one of the posters to say, "Here's a picture of the future: all the petrol cars dying in the background with the EV in the front."
Yes. I'm going to try and dig out that post. It can't be too many posts ago. That was Nundrew, so that was that's right here.
Did you know?
Yeah,
they were
it
all
is.
those dead cars.
So say again.
Did you know they were all there? Those dead cars before
Not
you got
until
the
I
drone in the air.
not until I popped the drone up in the air, to be honest.
Right.
So this is a rare site of the NRMA's that is a good site. So yeah, you can see all the cars. Some are on their sides, some are old classics. I actually took a couple extra drone shots, but I didn't put them on here. But this is actually an Illumina D1, 160 kilowatt battery assisted DC charger. So, and it's hard to see here. If I just open this in a new tab, this will make it a bit easier to see. Just here, oh, dearie me. Is a Starlink terminal for communications right here. So it's a Starlink Mini that they've basically sort of clamped down with this sort of steel, let's call it like a picture frame. So that basically is a Starlink terminal providing comms. Now, why is that gone? There we go. But yes, so there's lots of lots of cars, wrecked cars in the background that were showroom stunners at some part of their time. Yeah, this is the Roadhouse at Nundrew. So there's quite a few old
why they all
clunkers.
ended up there.
I dare say they're all the cars that broke down, and the backpackers and whoever just left them abandoned, and the Roadhouses just let's call it stored them there, and they'll be there for quite a while.
Yes.
But like I said, great spot as far as that's one of the successful locations of the federal government, bearing in mind that the Honourable Chris Bowen promised that at 2 elections ago. And yet, as we speak in WA, we only have Cataby, Manjimup. I think that's it in WA. So 2 charging locations that were built as part of that promised program of 115 charges on a nationwide highway route. So 2 have been built in WA to date, which is just appalling. But having said that, the one you've got behind you, Mike, is one of the good ones in South Australia. Alrighty. Has anyone got any maybe non-FSD related questions, or even just basic Tesla questions, or I've just bought a car, or I'm thinking of it, or whatever, in the last hour of our program?
I got a question, Harold. Has anyone
Yes,
who's
Colin.
not currently either bought or subscribed to FSD got the software update?
Oh, I don't know. I guess that's a question for anyone in the room. Has anyone got... So what that means is you don't actually have FSD, but you have... So one of the things that you
I've
do...
got the hardware 4, but I'm not currently subscribed to FSD, and yeah, I haven't got it yet. So I was just curious if anyone else has.
No, Colin, I'm on hardware 3 and I'm on 2026.2.6.1. So it dates back to February when I last had my software update.
So one of the things you get that's nice is, I mentioned the trip thing. So you get, this is just one of the trips, and you can have a multitude of them, and you can name it anything you like, which you could do, but it will... Normally you used to see your trips down here where your odometer is and your current drive, but you now get, you can have a whole screen, and like I said, you can pause it, you can reset it, you can edit it, you can delete a trip, but you can have a multitude of them. So I guess it's possible that people will start getting an update that has the FSD structure if you've subscribed to it, or if you have purchased FSD or had it transferred to your newer car. But if you don't have that, you should still be able to get this functionality, which is the nicer trips, and the user experience, the user interface is a little bit nicer. But I don't know if it's got to that state yet, Colin, where that started to roll out to non-FSD subscribers or owners at this stage. But it probably will go to a wider rollout soonish, even if just for the other features.
And I had my fingers very, very, very crossed for that nav data update for the Women of Badandi. It's only been 18 months since it opened.
Yeah, and it should have been up. Yeah, so that should be in the new update. Like I said, the new update is going to be numbered 2026.8, which is a bit weird because it's, we're into 2026.26 or 7 by now, but it is what it is. But I'm certain that map update's coming very soon. Now, the only way you can get the map update is if your car is on Wi-Fi. It must be on Wi-Fi. It's the only way you get the update. But obviously in the forums or on our Facebook page, people will start reporting that they've got it. And I dare say that'll probably come about pretty quickly. Once 1 or 2 people report it, I think everyone's going to get the map update.
I did see a report that somebody got it already a few days ago. That was the first report a couple of days ago. And he showed a screenshot of his screen.
Yeah, okay. And was that in Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it's
but
probably...
it's been really quiet since then, so I don't know whether they went, oh, stop or something. But it's been really quiet since then.
Yeah, right. Look, I think it's coming pretty soon. Which, and like I said, for many of us, it can't come soon enough, especially if you're in an area where there's been changes, even, as much as a year ago, that didn't make it through the last update. So fingers crossed on that one. Alrighty, anything else? Says he has just got a software update for his phone.
Harold, I was at service the other day. They asked me to ask you, they run out of EV tags for Tesla cars. Wondering if you had any more.
Oh, there's plenty more at the shop. It's just a matter of the club wanting to buy some more. Unfortunately, it's pretty expensive for us. It costs us $9 a set.
Wow.
And we've burned through, Paul, I can't remember. Is it three sets of
It's at least been 3 sets.
three
I sort
sets that cost us like $1,200-1,300 each or something? We burned through
Yeah.
a few $1,000s.
I think
Oh.
that's enough gratis stuff. I think people
I
can.
didn't
bought-
know that.
I bought my own for buying both cars. I think,
Yeah.
you got a Tesla, you can afford the $10. I don't think our members would appreciate.
They asked for some more. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go and see them. Which guys were that? Which campus was that? North or South? O'Connor or Aussie Park?
Aussie Park.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might break it to them. Might go and see them and
Yeah,
break
go
it
and
to
see
them.
them.
I mean, it was a great initiative by the club to
Yeah, I think it
give
was.
back to members, and also we didn't insist on verifying membership or anything like that. It was, as far as we were concerned, any Tesla owner that got caught short or whatever. It was a great initiative, and it was heartening to see a lot of people take it up. But I guess that time now has sort of passed. And good thing is, all the new cars, obviously Tesla fit the triangles to all their new cars, which is mandatory now anyway for new cars. And for anyone else who hasn't yet got a triangle, I think technically the wording is the law is in place now, but the law is not being enforced until the 1st of January 2027. And I guess on a personal note, as part of my little mini protest about the ridiculousness of EVs needing a blue triangle, whereas fossil fueled vehicles that can hold 100 liters of volatile fluids that have much more energy than a full battery pack. They don't require any placard of any kind, which is kind of ridiculous. I'll be putting my blue triangles that I buy locally on the morning of the 1st of January next year, which is when the law becomes enforced, and not a minute earlier. But that's just my little protest at the ridiculousness of it. And also the fact that you can look at Corollas and other Toyotas that are pretending to be EVs and get their little blue triangle, and those owners somehow think that they're saving the planet, or I don't know what they're trying to do, but it's quite ridiculous. Anywho, all right, anyone else? Even if it's not FSD related.
Yeah, Can I ask about? Oh, sorry.
No, you go first.
Has anybody who's got a Starlink on their house bought a longer cable from the dish to the router? Because mine is about 1 meter short than what I need it to be. It's a bit of a pain. Yeah, I know, Harold. It's unbelievable.
Just stretch it. No, you can't do that.
And it's so tricky to move the antenna or the dish.
Now, the end is a very standard Ethernet cable, right? At least on the Ethernet end of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's Cat8. It's got extra shielding and stuff, but...
Yep. Have you considered just getting one of those unions and a short...
Oh,
lump of cable?
I can, yeah, and a short extender. Yeah, that is actually a good point. Yes, that is a good point because it's going to
Because
be inside a wall where it's joined. That's the main problem. It's just because I get it's like a meter short, because
yeah,
Amazon have got obviously some third party ones, and they go
yep,
Starlink main cable or whatever you call it.
yep,
And you can get
15 meters or 20 meters.
You get a huge one from Starlink themselves, but I don't need a huge one. I just need one that's say 20 to 25 meters rather than 15. And I just wondered if anybody bought one. If they haven't, that's fine. End of question.
I haven't, but I have bought other Starlink cables, such as the power cable and etc., and I've found them to be okay. So,
Yeah,
look, as long as it's reasonably priced, and given that it's not practical to get a joiner and a short patch cable because it's in the wall, and that's a complication. I'd give it a go, Mike. I just look, and the thing is, if you're not happy with it, you can send it back. I think Amazon are pretty good with returns if that's necessary.
Yeah, there's a 30 meter one. I think it's like $60 or something, so it's not a huge cost.
And to be honest, the Starlink is only running at 100-ish megabits per second or whatever.
Yeah.
You'll get the gigabit link anyway. It'll be fine. I mean, I don't know if gigabit would slow down to 512 megabits or something like that if it does that, but I think you'll be fine with a non-Starlink cable.
So we ditched the Telstra connection this week.
There's a place in Aussie Park that might help you. It's called Access Antennas.
Okay.
They sell a few add-ons to Starlink and mounts and shit like that. They might have them.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Collingwood Street, Aussie Park.
Yep. No, so I can't complain about it at all. It's running tonight and there's no fuzziness or whatever. It was just, I think, the bad weather and thunderstorm that first night I was trying it. Which wasn't.
Yeah, it's been pretty good.
Speaking of which, SpaceX have applied to the American FCC or whoever.
Yep.
For 100. Yeah, it is 100,000 satellites, version 3 satellites, to go up into orbit at a much lower orbit, 324 kilometers, I believe, which is living dangerously. But yeah, so Starlink's just
deep orbit.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly right. So, but I think they're using. Is it Argon instead of Xenon?
It's whichever the cheap one is.
Yes, that's right. The one that's a lot, and I think Xenon's the more expensive one. So I think it's Argon, and they're just using more of it because they can, and they've just worked out it's cheaper to haul up something a bit heavier, as in the fuel, that's less efficient, but a lot cheaper, and they just work out that they can afford the fuel for what the satellite does with the reduced ping and propagation, ping delay, basically speed of light delay, because it's closer to the ground. So it's just remarkable what SpaceX is doing, and they've applied for 100,000 version 3 satellites, which is again remarkable.
SpaceX launch Flight 13. FAA put the notice up today, 14th of July, which none of us reckon is going to happen, because it's only like 7 days away, and they haven't done a static fire on the booster yet.
Yeah, right.
There was great footage last week of the ship doing its static fire. So if you haven't seen that, you can have a look at that. It's all on X, of course. But yeah, so basically it should be before the end of the month. It'll effectively be a repeat of the last flight.
Yes, with hopefully less engine failures.
Oh, for
I
the
guess
booster,
that's the
yeah.
main.
They know. I'm fairly sure all the, what do you call them? The reporters. What do you call them? The reporters or the people posting on X who do this stuff for a living, like Scott and all those. They've analysed it, and for whatever reason, the startup of the engines kicked the booster the wrong way.
Oh yes,
they didn't start the right way, so it kicked it the wrong way, and faster than it should have done as well. So slosh city, and therefore cavitation and by engines.
Yep, indeed. Yeah, right. Well, the exciting thing is it true that Falcon 9 has basically brought down launch costs from $10,000 a kilogram to about $1,000 a kilogram? And
this is the stuff Elon always quotes, so it's round numbers, yes.
yeah, as a figure of merit, or in the right order of magnitude, and that Starship fully reused will approximate down to about $100 US per kilogram.
Well, I'll say this: that's the plan, but the heat shield is the issue.
Yes. Yeah, indeed.
I'm fairly sure the engines are going to be, they'll get on top of that, just like they did with the Falcon engines. But the heat shield is going to be the issue. But I will say that the a full 60-second static fire of ship that's going to fly on the 13th flight, you couldn't see tiles falling off like you could in the early days.
Exactly. They've got better glue, I dare say.
Well, it's clips mostly, except for the top, but they're not going to clip that in the next ones too.
Yeah, right.
But
so it's just progressing, and the great thing is Elon Musk and any of his companies that he starts and runs and builds, they are never content with the status quo. They're always searching for the limits of physics, or they use the limits of physics as the only limit to what they try to achieve. And in every endeavor, whether it's Tesla's, you look at the Tesla cars, they are the most efficient, cost-effective electric vehicles on Earth, bar none. SpaceX with launch, it was never good enough just to put on a cost plus and say, we just build something, we'll slap 30% on it, and then we'll just ditch it into the Pacific Ocean and call it job done. That was never good enough. Why chuck it away when you can reuse it? And the same applies for all the other technologies, AI data centers and everything else, Neuralink, the Boring Company. That is just what Elon Musk and all these companies insist on doing, is always use the only limit to what they can achieve is the laws of physics, and everything else is just a suggestion.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because it's a lot trickier than people understand doing the heat shield, because the ship itself expands and contracts. It's a lot.
A lot.
You can physically see it against something that isn't expanding and contracting, and so you've got that stainless steel tin can that shrinks and expands, and then you've got this hard shield around it. So how does that work? So it's tricky that they've even got it to stay on at all when you think about that. And they're hard clips, so all that's interesting. But the other thing which a lot of people don't realize is that once they get a reserve of fuel in orbit, then although it increases the cost, there are numbers which still keep you ahead for a propulsive landing, a partial propulsive landing. So what that means is that instead of coming in at full whack and taking the heating, you can actually do enough slowing down with more remaining propellant to only heat it up to, say, 1,000 to 1,500 degrees C, which will make it go pretty colours for those of you who know metallurgy. How long the stainless can tolerate that heating up and cooling down is another question. But there are more ways to skin this cat than are obvious to the average pundit out there. It's just because you've got a much larger rocket, it does change things a bit.
Yep, indeed. and the thing is, what's impressive is there's not another rocket company or a country on Earth that has done anything near to what SpaceX has achieved in the time it's been around. You know, yeah, it's you look at the space shuttle, and that was going to be the great hope of sustainable, space travel and getting satellites up cheaply. And each space shuttle cost well in excess of $1 billion because they basically had to almost, replace a huge proportion of the tiles at each launch.
Yep.
And all the launch infrastructure was mostly rebuilt or refurbished dramatically. Whereas SpaceX just says that's just not good enough. Aeroplanes take off and land with routine, with mundane routineness, and obviously rockets are a lot harder, but at least that's the end goal. And even if it takes a couple of days to refurbish a Starship, even if it takes a week, it doesn't matter because they can just build a few dozen and have them racked up. Just like the Falcon 9s, I think they still do some refurbishment on them. But
yeah.
I think a Falcon 9, what's the longest? Is it 27 launches? I think they've done on a Falcon 9 or 29 or something. It's
the
pushing.
boosters coming this week. I was on NSF today. 36 is their top one, which is its next flight. So when's that? Let me have a look. I'll tell you in a minute. But
so 36 times it's been
36
reused.
times for the same booster. So where are we? There we go. So people don't realize this, that you think about it, for almost all the others except for Blue Origin, that would have been a full rocket in the ocean somewhere, right? And that's just one of them. In fact, I saw some, I'm going round numbers now. Here we go. 36th flight of B1067, scheduled for launch 9th of the 7th. When's that? Tomorrow. There you go.
There you go.
But what is it? They hit the 1000th engine for manufacture and or refurbish. So they've done, like, let's say 6,000 flights, and it's
600, isn't it?
6,000 engine flights.
Yes.
If that makes sense. So 6,000 engines have gone up and down, and 1,000 of them have been new.
Yep.
So that,
and like I said, that just goes to
amazing.
20 years ago, it was lampooned as ridiculous. Why would you even bother?
Yes.
It's just cannot be done. You can, and if you look at the Starship booster, it's the height of what, a 30-story building.
Like
so you are trying to land a 30-story building on chopsticks. I mean, most people that heard that for the first time thought, no, Muskie's really gone a bit too far this time. It's just a little bit too outlandish, but it works.
The next catch is going to be interesting because they've changed the chopsticks considerably for Pad 2.
Yes, shortened them.
Shortened and changed from hydraulics to electric motor actuators, right? So they were testing some yesterday, and they move now. So it's going to be interesting. But that won't be till depends on what happens with the booster this flight. If it goes smoothly, they might do an attempt flight 14, so another month after this month, maybe.
Yep.
So it's all before the end of this year. There's going to be some interesting things. We might have FSD Lite for Hardware 3 owners starting to float around. Starship, hopefully we've done a couple of things. Blue Origin might have got their act together again, after which would be, you can see how Tesla has rippled on throughout the whole industry, because Blue Origin, had a major deal. For those who don't know, their ship blew up about what, 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. No, it must be 3 weeks. But they
Sorry,
cleared the pad.
an unscheduled disassembly, wasn't it?
That's it. And they've cleared the pad. So, you know, that would have been unheard of from any rocket company, you know, a few years ago. So, you know, all of that stuff, that mindset that SpaceX has created under their leadership is starting to spread through the rest of the industry. And Rocket Lab are doing well, of course. So if you're interested in shares, Rocket Lab are probably a worthwhile, not financial advice, guys, because they're going to do fairly well. Go on.
I think the good thing that SpaceX has done is they've gotten back to this scrappy. It's informed iteration. They're not just iterating just for the hell of it. They're not just throwing darts at a board, but they are, in an informed sense, iterating to learn, and also clearly pushing the envelope and learning from it, and not fearing failure, because really failure is just another step to a future success. Whereas the legacy, and this applies the same to the automotive legacy car makers, the legacy rocket makers are going, well, let's just keep doing the same things we've always done, and let's just build it once, test it for years and years and years and years, and fly it once and ditch it into the ocean and call it a job done. And, you know, it's just not the way Tesla and its companies and SpaceX and others roll. It's, let's not be afraid to break some eggs to make omelettes, but let's do it in an informed way and learn from it, but rapidly move on and question everything.
Their technology is just so far ahead. It really is. A lot of people don't realize that. You're on about the expansion. When I was doing my design office training at British Aerospace, when it was back in the 80s, early 80s, they used the example of Concorde. And you were all shown how the Concorde in flight, and that's going at Mach 2, expanded something like 10 inches in length. And the floor inside the cabin was fingers. And it expanded out when it was actually at Mach 2. And then when it came back down to land again, they all closed up again, the gaps. Now, that's only at Mach 2. When you've got something coming in at about 12 or 13 times the speed of sound?
Oh, more. I think 25, Mach 25.
25 times the speed of sound. That isn't a little bit hotter. It's exponentially hotter. So imagine what the expansion is like, and you're trying to keep those tiles on. It is a feat in engineering. It really is.
Maybe they should have put the tiles on like scales, and the tiles could just slide
off.
No, anyway,
you probably find they do to some degree. They probably have an interlocking thing, because they must expand and contract, so they've got to allow for that.
They've got essentially
a dovetail or something.
Fiber pads underneath which wrap up round the side, and that's got enough for compression and expansion in it. So there's a gap between all the tiles, but obviously you can have a gap. So they've got the ceramic fiber in. It actually sits underneath as well as around the side. But I was going to make a comment how, going back to FSD, I don't know if any of you follow a personal, or I don't know if he's a chap. I think he's a man, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Genma_JP. So GENMA_JP. Now, he's actually a, what do you call it? A person who works in the autonomous vehicle programming area or software area. So that's GENMA_JP. Now, he's written some excellent articles about, some of you will have probably heard about this discussion, that how can they possibly do it with only vision and not have radar and LiDAR and every other sensor on there. He's written several articles at great length and has then been expanding on that commentarily as to only one organization in China is anywhere close to what Tesla are doing with with the FSD. So China will get there, but they're probably about, he reckons, 2 to 3 years behind. So if you can imagine FSD 2 to 3 years ago, that's where they are. And Legacy and everybody else are just never going to get there. It's just not going to happen. It's very interesting. So if you want to have a look through, go to his thing, and then he's got he writes articles. So, you know, and he explains exactly why having mixed sensor system is a problem in great detail. So very interesting if you want to look into that sort of thing. Me being an engineer, I like all that stuff.
And like I said, 2 laps ago with version 13, I would have gone, no, you can't do kangaroos. It's just not going to be possible. It just can't react quick enough. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be like an Australian quirk thing that, you know, most of the rest of the world doesn't have to contend with. And it only took one latest lap to go, yep, that's all different now. It's solved. It's not just, oh, it'll be really hard and maybe they'll do it okay. It's to the point of, it can see better than I can. It's solved. End of story. You know, and that's all it takes. It just, and the thing is, unlike dumb humans that are just meat bags with eyes, and, you know, and we've said this before, people try and estimate what the megapixel equivalent of our vision is. And the thing is that you can't, it's kind of misleading, because the only bit of high resolution vision we have, and I find it hard to believe even saying this, is I'm pretty sure it's stated that it's roughly, if you get your hand or your thumb at arm's length, so you stretch your arm out and you look to your thumb, your thumb is roughly, or your thumbnail is roughly the proportion of your vision that is actually high resolution. Everything else is low resolution, but you just don't notice because your brain just fills in all the gaps and all that sort of stuff. And when you look at something, you're not looking at the whole image. Your eyes are darting around and your brain fills it all in. So the difference of the cars, of course, is, and look, there's a classic, if anyone goes up the Kwinana Freeway northwards towards the Narrows Bridge and you get off at the Mill Point Road off-ramp, and it's actually a terrible intersection because it's a T intersection on a curve that roughly spans 270 degrees, and you're in the shade of the Narrows Bridge. So in daylight, you're looking at this huge contrast of the darkness under the bridge. You are spanning 270 degrees either side of you on an arc, and there are pedestrians, cyclists. You usually have the freeway safety trucks and whatever parked sort of that block part of your vision. And all you can do as a dumb human is look left and right and look around and different contrast and whatever and go, yeah, I think I'm okay to turn. It's kind of high stress and high brain effort required to work it all out. The car sees in all directions all the time at the same constant resolution for everything it's looking at, and it can make the decision, you know, and it's processing frames, 30 frames of video from each camera simultaneously, and it makes its decision in I don't know, maybe 100 milliseconds, and just does it with confidence and never forgets.
The interesting thing, of course, is that the human brain's actually a bit cleverer than that, because when faced with all that information, let's say 10 cameras worth, the brain very quickly eliminates most of the unimportant stuff, and only the important stuff goes into the let's do some calculation area. Called, and interestingly enough, there is I won't call it a disability, but some people have difficulty in doing that. So when I was working with some of the high hazard organizations, so pilots, for example, they actually filter this out, this, should we say, slight disability, because you can appreciate on a pilot when things are going upside down, you need to filter out very quickly what's not. And some people can't. So a simple test, some of you may know these puzzles where you get like a geometric shape and it's made up of triangles and diamonds. And the test is to pick the diamond out of this shape or pick the triangle out of all these multiple triangles or count the number of triangles. Some people are hopeless at that. And so you never want them to be a pilot, for example. And that's why some people are average drivers, because they cannot separate the important stuff out quickly enough to be able to drive suitably. Although, again, there aren't any tests really to be a driver, unlike a pilot. So it is an interesting subject.
Was it Carl Benz? No, it was the other one, Diesel. One of them said, one of the German inventors said he believed that on the entire Earth, there are only about 1 million people at the time. Let's call it the turn of the 20th century. There are only about 1 million people on Earth that are truly capable of driving an automobile. Now that probably almost follows with some scaling to today, but sadly many more people than ought to do drive cars. But the great thing now is in the very near future, that won't be an issue anymore, because the vast majority of people won't be driving their cars, and that'll be good for them and good for everyone else, you know. And that future's coming really soon.
Yep.
A lot sooner than people think.
Yeah, and once the numbers get there, the evidence is sort of overwhelming now. But
well, like I said, I had this. It wasn't until I saw my car stop almost on a dime, albeit for a false thing, but that didn't worry me. It was the fact that I realized not only can this car see better than I can see, it can react better than I can, and it can jam the brakes on harder than I've ever tried in my life. And once I realized that that's what the car was doing, then I literally changed my mind and went, I'm not touching the steering wheel and I'm not touching the brakes. I'm just going to let the car do its thing. And that was such a great relief. And because there's nothing, anyone who's driven in the bush, especially at night time, there is nothing more stressful than kangaroos, bush pigs, horses,
wombats,
even
cattle,
wombats, cows, and actually some of the teenage cattle, I don't know what you call that, like teenage cow, they can run a lot faster than you imagine. It's literally scary, and you feel like you're in a war zone. And the cortisol that courses through your veins is something, you know, it's just not good for you. But to now know, and unfortunately, I can only say how I felt. Many people in the room and watching, you'll have to sort of experience it for yourself. But once you realize the car actually is driving better than you ever can, that is such a relief. And it's an amazing experience. It just changes the way you perceive driving. And
I think
that's
I
going to
told
happen.
you when I saw you. Go on, sorry.
No, go, Mark.
I was just going to say, I think I told you when I was at the meeting the other day, when we were doing our lap, was going along and some cows were on the road, and they're on the left-hand side of the road, very narrow road, was going on at a reasonable pace, saw the cows, slowed down, was watching the cows, and the car saw a cow coming in from the right-hand side. I was looking to the left, and the cow came in from the right-hand side. The car hit the brakes. I hit the brakes on top of it, but I'm sure the car would have stopped anyway. But it's just a matter of, it saw it, and if I hadn't braked, I wouldn't have seen that cow from the other side, or if I would, it would have been way too late. And I stopped with 6 foot from it. So it was, it's very scary, but it's amazing what that car can do.
And that's the classic thing too, because as mere humans, you often obsess about something like a weird weed that's growing on the side, because it kind of looks like a kangaroo, sort of, but it doesn't exactly look like one. because if it did, you go, there's a kangaroo, and then it's job done. But it sort of doesn't quite look like one, but your brain is still studying it and trying to categorize it. And in the meantime, you are singularly obsessed with that one thing. And of course, there could be an elephant coming on the other side of the road, and you'd never notice because you are fixated and your eyes can only look in one thing at a time. So that's the magic of these cars, where they see in all directions and they don't get distracted. All the neural networks work in their magical way, but I dare say up to a certain limit, they can have multiple targets and they won't get distracted. They just do what they're designed to do without flinching. And yet
Just the
humans got
process
no
will get
chance.
better, even better.
Yeah, and imagine AI 5 and 6 as they get more and more iterations.
Question.
These things really will be not just better than human, but vastly better. So that driving at a mere 100 k's an hour will be like us driving at 10 k's an hour. And that'll happen because once perception gets better and the processing power gets better, they will literally see in superhuman ways that, you know, they will be the world champion formula. Like if they allowed AI into Formula One, those cars will be doing ridiculous things that humans can't even imagine, just like playing chess and things like that. No human can beat a computer in chess anymore and other games. And that you don't even bother trying. It's not even a thing anymore.
Harold.
Oh,
Harold. Yeah, just a quick question,
oh
Harold.
yes, Andrew, and then I'll go straight to
yeah,
Jared. So yeah, go, Andrew.
Yeah, just a quick one. Yeah, this test logic thing. Did you see that email I sent you about test logic? You know, you were saying that you wanted something that could see the battery flows or the current flows and that. Did you actually see it in the end that I sent you?
Oh, no, Andrew, my apologies. When I'm on the lap, I've got no
No,
time to do anything, and I've just been catching up. Yeah, sorry, I've got a whole backlog, and apologies to anyone who sent me an email. I've got a whole backlog, but yeah, the test logic that was to analyze batteries and other stuff.
Well, yeah, basically it's a heads-up display, but it's an app on your phone.
Oh yes, sorry, yes,
Yeah,
yep.
that one. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that. I was just trying to find out if anyone else in Australia has actually got one already, because they sent me a harness and it doesn't fit my car. You know, the connections, you know, to the
Which car have you got,
Model
Andrew?
3 2019 long range.
Oh, it's the older one. It's got the older connector. It's a larger connector.
Yeah, it's got the blue.
He always keeps one on his desk.
Yeah.
Just in case. Always
The
just
CAN bus
Yeah, no, I
connectors.
do have. I chucked my old Model Y stuff. I do have them. Oh, hang on. Okay, so it'll be similar to this.
Yeah, yeah. White
I'll
connectors
just
at one end, blue at the other.
yeah. So this is one. This is for a. This will do a Model Y in the back console.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that one, that's
where your
fine. I got
armrest,
that right. It's
and
the
then you've
far
got
end.
the other end for the OBD.
Yeah,
Oops.
that's the problem. No, it's slightly different. It's got a power connector. I think it takes power off.
Yes. Yep.
But yeah, the long and short is I'm trying to find somebody in Australia who's already got one of these, because I'm trying to talk to these guys over in America and say, look, you've sent me the wrong harness. This is what the other guy has. Send me one of them, you know? That's all I'm asking. But I don't know if anyone in Australia actually has one of these. That's what I'm trying to find out. Do you know anyone in Australia that has a Test Logic?
No, oh no,
in
definitely
their
not.
car?
Have you looked at any of the forums or anything?
No, nothing. No,
Um,
not at all.
Ask those guys at Test Logic. Tell them that. Did you tell when you order it? You probably just said Model 3.
Yeah, right.
Did
So
that?
Australian delivered Model 3, same as what you've sent to anyone else in Australia, you know,
Yep.
of that ilk. And no, they just seems to be radio silence. It's like as if they never sold one to anyone here. That's what I'm wondering, is that no one else has.
Oh, probably not. No, probably not. Because
Yeah.
a lot of these companies sort of, you know, someone will develop something and they'll just deploy it and they'll just presume. Look, a lot of accessories from the States, they're only dealing with people in the States anyway. And that can be a bit frustrating. And I know, so, I mean, I've got this This thing here is for the old classic Model Ys. I'm not even sure if the Model 3s fit this, but I think they might. But then there was a variation where you had to have this plus the power because this thing has power in it. One of these connectors. This is a through connector, so you actually pull apart the two connectors and you splice this in, and then you've got your OBD thing here. There was a version for my Juniper Model Y that it didn't fit this format, and they've actually changed the connector twice. So I had to make a Franken one which picked off power from the brake controller output connection. And no, it was for trailer brakes. Right. So there's like a 4-pin, one's power, one's the brake lights, and one's the actual brake output. So I had to sort of do a cobbled together thing. So yeah, I feel your pain, Andrew. It's just maybe what you could say is, I'll look at the email.
And have a look at what do you think of it. If there's any use to anyone else, like what the functionality of it. If I can get this harness to eventually work. What do you think of the functionality of it? Has it got any value? I guess that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks. Anyway, thanks. I'll
Cool.
let Jared talk.
Yeah, no worries. Jared.
How you going, Harold?
Hey. Yeah, all right.
Speaking of replying to texts, I did send you a text while you're doing your lap, wishing you a safe drive and hope you went well. But so I thought you might have been.
Thanks. Sorry.
Sure.
In my sleep deprivation, I probably just. Oh, geez, I didn't even see that, mate. Sorry about that.
Okay. I'll forgive you. Mike, I've got a question for you. How long do you think it's going to be until a cop books somebody for self-driving, not having their hands on the steering wheel?
Well, in WA, it is legal to not have. It is not a requirement. Sorry. In WA, you have to be in control of your vehicle.
Yep.
Being in control of it, you're not required to have your hands on the wheel to be in control. But if, for example, you had a bowl of cornflakes in one hand and a spoon in the other, a cop could then say you are not in control.
Right.
Not because you haven't got your hands on the wheel, but there's no way you could put your hands on the wheel anytime soon.
Right.
So I have militantly not had my hands on the steering wheel going under the Mill Point Road on-ramp of the freeway where those
IR cameras are.
IR cameras are.
Yeah.
Which take the 3 images and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And I've done it dozens upon dozens, probably 100 times, if not more, with my hands never on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And never got a sniff of anything. And like I said, in Australia, there's not one jurisdiction, not one state or territory that states that to be in control of your vehicle, you must have at least a hand on the steering wheel. There's not that. That's not a thing.
Okay.
But you have to still be deemed to be in control, which doesn't include holding a bowl of Weet-Bix or something and a spoon.
Yeah, fair enough.
I
just know that when you're sitting at the traffic lights, cops always pull up next to you and look in your window to see if you're on a phone, and then when they're cruising along, they kind of look at you again when you're driving along. So I'm just waiting for how long do they? Oh, you didn't have your hand on the steering wheel.
No, hand is not. No, it's not in WA legislation. That is not. And the same principle applies, and it's applied for decades. When people have had cruise control, you don't have to have your foot on the accelerator.
Right.
So, and in fact, there's nothing in in Australian legislation that has anything to say about FSD even, because it's actually doing the driving. Or should I say, it's making your car move around and change directions and speed and all that sort of stuff. But again, you are still as the driver. You are still the driver, the deemed driver to be in control of the car. So whatever the car does, it's your fault, or it's deemed that you did that, even if you didn't.
Yeah.
So there's no excuse. I'm sorry, officer. My car sped. It wasn't me. It was the car. yet. Now, the legislation is coming because all of the transport ministers have agreed, all the state transport ministers and the federal transport minister, they've all agreed to enact to develop the framework, which will be overarching federal legislation. And then every state and territory has agreed they will do enabling state legislation to comply with the federal legislation to actually have autonomous vehicles as a proper class of vehicle. And that'll contemplate things like insurance, liability, interaction with wildlife, cops, everything, the whole shooting match, everything will be contemplated. And at that point in time, it'll be, say, like the manufacturer, like Tesla will then say, when the car is in properly approved self-driving mode, autonomous mode, it'll be our responsibility. You either don't need to be in the car, or even if you are in the car, you're not in control of it, and that's okay. And that's been ratified by all the jurisdictions.
Cool.
So, if the car slams into something, it's the car's fault, not your fault, etc.
Yeah, gotcha.
But yeah, so definitely, no, you absolutely do not have to have even a single hand on the wheel, but you still have to be observed to be in control of the car.
Yeah. Cool. So no breastfeeding then when you're driving.
For you, anyway.
Yes. For me, Jared, I guarantee that's not a thing. Otherwise, that would be in the newspaper for sure. Unless I just identified as someone. No, we're not going to go down there. All right. At this, we are almost past our bedtime. Have we got any last minute questions or comments?
I just want to check that you haven't got an update because my GPS is still delayed. My instruction.
No. So there's no, and maybe the map update might help, and I know that's coming, Carmen. So there is a map update, and that might be better.
Yep.
But it's not quite here yet. But I think it's imminent. And I forget who it was. Someone said earlier that someone in Australia had said with a screenshot or whatever that their car had gotten the map update. So I dare say most cars will be getting that in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully that might help, Carmen. Hopefully.
Is that 16.6, Harold? Do you know, software version?
No. It's not a software update. It's a map update. So the map update is distinct. So when you go into software, you'll see your version 2025 or 2026 dot whatever for the software.
Yep.
But the map update will currently show 2025.8. The new map update is 2026.8. Right. And that's an update. It doesn't really come with fanfare. It's not something you install. It just happens.
Yeah.
So you'll wake up in the morning and I think you might get like a notification that says the map has been updated, maybe. But if you look in the software, it'll just show as 2026.8 instead of 2025.8 for map. It's a separate file. It's a separate part.
But for Carmen's interest, it will only happen over Wi-Fi, Carmen.
Oh, yes, that's okay. I make sure it gets Wi-Fi during the day somewhere. But I think it's the voice activation is way delayed. Like I'm already turned and it gives me instructions to turn into my street when I'm already in the garage.
Yeah, indeed. That's unfortunately, that's done it to me many times, Carmen, and it's a real pain because you're right. You have to optically look at the map to go, no, I do know I have to turn off. And then as you've already committed to getting off the slip lane, it then says turn right now. And it's like, or turn left. And it's like, well, I know if I didn't do it when I did it, as opposed to when you told me to, you would have gone past it. And it's a bit frustrating.
Also, charging, it's saying that it's at 80% when I've only got 245 Ks. And that's not a lot. That's not 80% of 350.
No. So, sorry, how many Ks does it say? 250?
But I used to, yes, less than 250. It's about 240 something. But previously, I used to get 260, 270, 280 sometimes. And now it's not doing it.
Yeah, so
Very aging.
it does look, the batteries do age, and there is a slight amount of degradation that happens. It can be still like 10, 15% depending. At 250 Ks at 80%, if that's what it said, then that would represent roughly 312 Ks full.
Well, it's supposed to be 250.
But is your car's a standard range Model 3? Yeah, so, and yours is the older one, which
20.
Yeah, so I think that's not the LFP battery. I think it's just a smaller size NCA battery. So they do degrade a little bit more than the LFPs. So yeah, I mean, that's probably about right. You can do a battery test, although it involves you got to try and drive the car until it's nearly empty, like the emptier the better, like less than 5%. And then you start the test. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I remember your first trip, Carmen, down south. You arrived with basically nothing. So you drive the car down to when it's nearly empty. The emptier the better, because what happens is you plug your car in, you go into, I think it's under service, and you can go battery test. And what it does is, with the car plugged in to your charger, it will discharge the car. So it turns on the air conditioner and the heater, and all the fans turn on very loudly, and it tries to wait. It basically depletes the rest of that battery to zero. And then it fully charges it up and measures the difference. And then it can tell you what the battery health is. And many people get numbers like, 85% healthy or whatever. So yeah, it's just a natural degradation. The good news is, if you buy another Tesla, a newer one, like a new one, all that degradation is a lot less these days than even just 6 years ago. They're getting better and better and better.
Yep.
I'll be getting a long range if I do, and when I do one, and in any case, by then I'll have a charger at home, so it won't matter so much.
Yes, that's right too. All of this stuff is more stressful and more of a pain when you've got to externally charge, especially if you've got to go and supercharge or whatever, regularly, than if you just plug it in at night.
Yeah, I try not to supercharge.
Yep.
I do one supercharge a week, and then the other two I do on 16 amp.
Yep.
To try and save it a bit.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing to do. Alrighty. Anyone else got any last questions or comments before we wrap this awesome show up?
Yeah, just one last comment on version 14.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, John.
One feature I was hoping that they would resolve in version 14 was how to keep my hands warm with version 14, given that I'm not hanging onto the steering wheel with FSD.
Yeah, so rather than the steering wheel warmer, and actually I've found myself actually gripping onto the steering wheel even though I don't need to, just to warm my hands. But you could always just sit on your hands and put your seat warmer on, John, and do it that way.
Yeah.
Wear a pair of gloves.
It's such a classic first world problem. It's like, oh my God, I can't hold onto the heated steering wheel anymore. What am I going to do? It's terrible. Great problem to have. Alrighty. On that note, I'd normally ask Pete. Actually, speaking of Pete, he's just gallivanting. He's having a hell of a time. I'm not sure his family's having as good a time as he is, because he's got two boys and a long-suffering wife. Hopefully he'll still be married by the time he gets back. And he did say to his family, oh, this is going to be a World Cup soccer holiday in America. So they went and saw Australia win against Paraguay. No, whoever, can't remember, some team.
Paraguay was the draw.
Or was it a draw? Whatever. Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
they got in, whatever it was, and then he said, "Oh, look, so the soccer was for the kids," and then he goes, "Well, since we're in America, he got himself a Cyber Beast, so he's happy in his Cybertruck, or he was happy in his Cybertruck, and with FSD, of course, and then he got his rocket launch at Vandenberg, so that was great to see a Falcon 9 take off." He's done a factory tour at Fremont. He either has gone to or is going to the Austin Gigafactory. And I think he was going to... Oh, and he's been... I'm not sure if he went to Boca Chica in Texas. And he's going to go to Florida and then to New York. So he sort of did warn his family that it would be partly a Tesla holiday, which... I think it's kind of like almost all a Tesla holiday. But anyway, but Pete's having a great time anyway. So that's good on him for that. And good on his long-suffering wife for putting up with it. In any case, I would normally obviously ask him how he would round out an awesome show like this as if I didn't already know. And he would invariably respond with, as always, stay safe. Stay
sustainable.
Stay sustainable.
Sustainable.
Stay safe, stay sustainable, and stay ahead of the curve. And of course, I would respond in the normal way, which is, and the best way to do that is buy a Tesla, join TOCWA, and ask us anything about accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy and abundance. Have a wonderful week, everyone. And I really do look forward to seeing you on next week's episode of TOCWA's Ask Us Anything. Good night, everyone.
Fantastic.
Donald.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.